Hi, I'm Lilybell, and a year ago, my own mother kicked me out of the house over a lie. She looked me in the eyes and told me I was a thief. My sister stood there smirking while my father said nothing. And just like that, I was gone. No money, no home, nothing. But here's the twist. They thought I would fall. They thought I would beg to come back. Instead, I built a life they never saw coming. And now, after a year of silence, I'm standing in front of them again, this time with everything they tried to take from me, and more. I walked through the front door, shaking off the exhaustion from another long shift. The warm glow of the chandelier cast a golden hue over the marble floor, but something was off. The house was too quiet, too still. Then I saw them. Sabine stood in the center of the living room, arms crossed, her sharp gaze locking onto me the moment I stepped inside. Celestine lounged on the couch, one leg draped over the other, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. Evander was by the fireplace, staring into the embers like he wished he were anywhere else. "Where have you been?" Sabine's voice was like ice. I frowned. "At work. Why?" Her lips curled into something that resembled a smile, but I knew better. "Tell me, Lilybell, is there something you'd like to confess?" "Confess?" My stomach twisted. "I don't know what you're talking about." She let out a slow, deliberate sigh, then picked up a folder from the coffee table. "Then maybe you can explain this." I stepped forward, my heart pounding as she flipped the folder open. Inside was a bank statement, one I had never seen before. The highlighted transaction showed $25,000, withdrawn from one of Sabine's accounts. My blood ran cold. "That's not mine." Celestine let out a soft chuckle, tilting her head as if I were some pitiful creature she was watching unravel. "That's interesting, because Mom's financial advisor tracked it back to your login credentials." "That's impossible." My voice came out sharper than I intended. Sabine took a step toward me, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "So you're saying someone hacked into my business account, and yet there were no signs of a breach, only your access?" I shook my head, trying to piece together how the hell this was happening. "You really think I'd steal from you? That I'd be stupid enough to take money from your business account?" "People do all sorts of desperate things when they're drowning," Celestine mused. "Maybe you were tired of struggling. Maybe you thought no one would notice." I turned to Evander, searching his face for any sign that he believed me. He wouldn't meet my gaze. My stomach twisted. "You know I didn't do this." He exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. "Lilybell, I don't know what to believe." Something inside me cracked. Sabine's expression didn't waver. She had already made up her mind. "Pack your things," she said, voice like steel. "You're not welcome here anymore." My hands were shaking as I threw clothes into a duffel bag. My childhood bedroom, once a place of warmth and familiarity, now felt suffocating. Behind me, the door creaked open. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. "Wow, that was fast," Celestine mused, leaning against the doorframe. "Guess you knew this was coming, huh?" I zipped the bag with so much force my fingers ached. "Get out." She laughed, the sound light and mocking. "Oh, don't be like that, sis. It's nothing personal. Well, maybe a little personal." I spun around, my patience worn thin. "Why?" My voice cracked, anger and betrayal twisting inside me. "Why would you do this to me?" Celestine placed a hand over her heart in mock sympathy. "I didn't do anything. But you, on the other hand..." She let the words hang in the air, her smirk widening. "Mom always told you to be careful with money." Rage burned through my veins, but I swallowed it down. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Footsteps approached. I turned to see Evander standing at the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but for a fleeting moment, I saw something there. Guilt. "Dad," I whispered. "Please. You know I wouldn't..." His jaw tightened. "You should go." A lump formed in my throat. Sabine appeared behind him, holding out an envelope. "This should get you by," she said, her tone almost dismissive. I opened it. A measly $200. That was it. That was all I was worth to them. I clenched my jaw, shoving the envelope into my pocket. Celestine stepped aside as I walked past her. "Good luck, loser," she whispered, her laughter echoing behind me as the front door slammed shut. The night air was cold against my skin. The drizzle had turned into a steady rain, soaking through my jacket as I stood on the sidewalk, gripping my duffel bag. I had nowhere to go. The reality of it sank in, heavier than I expected. I had always known Sabine played favorites, that Celestine could twist reality to suit her needs, but I never thought they'd actually cast me out. I had spent years trying to prove I was good enough for them. For what? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A single text. "You'll regret this." I didn't know if it was Sabine or Celestine. Maybe both. The rain blurred the city lights as I stepped onto the bus. I didn't look back. That house wasn't my home anymore. 1 year later, I returned, not as the girl they abandoned, but as someone they never expected. Sabine leaned back in her leather chair, tapping her manicured nails against the desk. The bank statement in front of her told a story she didn't want to believe. The missing money, the $25,000 that had supposedly been stolen, was never in my hands. It had been traced back to Celestine. Her fingers curled around the paper, crumpling it slightly. Her mind raced through the implications. If this ever got out, she would look like a fool. She had thrown her daughter out of the house over a lie. "Celestine," she called, her voice sharp. Celestine waltzed into the office like she owned the place, a Starbucks cup in one hand, phone in the other. "Yeah?" Sabine held up the statement. "You care to explain this?" Celestine barely glanced at it before shrugging. "Oh, that?" She sipped her coffee. "Relax, Mother. It's not like you can't afford it." Sabine's nostrils flared. "You let me believe Lilybell stole from me. You sat there and watched while I threw her out." Celestine rolled her eyes. "And? She's gone. It's done. No one cares." Sabine clenched her jaw so tight she felt her teeth ache. "You're lucky I'm cleaning up your mess," she muttered. Celestine smirked over the rim of her cup. "I know." The restaurant hummed with the quiet chatter of the city's elite. A year ago, I wouldn't have stepped foot in a place like this. Now, I belonged. I sat across from a man in a tailored suit, his eyes assessing me as he slid a document across the table. $2 million, he said simply. "A startup investment in your name. You've done well, Miss Renard." I picked up the contract, flipping through the pages. It wasn't just money. It was validation, proof that I had clawed my way back from nothing. I signed my name without hesitation. "This isn't just business for you, is it?" the man observed. I met his gaze. "No, it's personal." As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A text, an address, a time. A family gathering. At that house? Perfect. I tucked my phone away, smoothing the front of my dress. Let's see how much has changed. The house looked the same, but I wasn't the same girl who had walked out of it a year ago. I stepped inside and the air shifted. Sabine stood near the staircase, wineglass in hand, her smile as fake as the designer necklace around her neck. Celestine, perched on the arm of a sofa, looked up from her phone, her eyes darting nervously. Evander was by the fireplace, swirling a drink, avoiding my gaze. No one spoke for a moment. "You look, well," Sabine said finally, her tone forced. "You don't," I replied smoothly. Celestine scoffed. "Well, that didn't take long." I ignored her, stepping further into the room. Every detail was the same. The furniture, the lighting, even the faint scent of Sabine's expensive perfume in the air. It was like walking into a museum of my past. But I wasn't here to admire the exhibits. I was here to burn the place down. As I took my seat, I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving until they knew exactly who I'd become. They thought I'd forgotten. They thought I'd forgiven. They were wrong. The dining room was set like something out of a magazine. Fine china, crystal glasses, a perfectly arranged centerpiece. But no amount of carefully curated decor could hide the tension that crackled through the air. Sabine sat at the head of the table, her expression serene as she speared a piece of asparagus with her fork. Across from her, Evander nursed his drink in silence. Celestine scrolled through her phone, pretending to be uninterested. And me? I sat there, watching them play their parts in this twisted little performance. "So," Sabine began, her voice smooth, "Lilybell, tell us, what exactly have you been doing this past year?" I took a sip of wine, letting the question settle between us. "Oh, I said lightly. Surviving. Thriving, actually. Sabine's eyes flickered, but her expression remained neutral. That's good to hear. Celestine snorted. Please, you probably got lucky with some rich guy throwing money at you. I turned my gaze to her. Interesting assumption, considering I made my own fortune. But then again, you've never been great at handling money, have you? Celestine stiffened, and I saw it. The briefest flash of unease in her eyes. Then she made her mistake. Unlike Mom, I don't have financial difficulties, she muttered, stabbing her salad a little too aggressively. The room went still. Sabine's grip on her wine glass tightened just enough for her knuckles to pale. Evander finally looked up from his drink, brow furrowing. Financial difficulties? I repeated, tilting my head. Funny, I thought you had everything under control. Sabine's reaction was immediate. Her head snapped toward Celestine with a sharp, warning look. Celestine tried to backtrack. I just meant, things have been tight lately, that's all. I set my fork down. Oh, you mean the missing money? Celestine's face went white. Sabine's expression remained unreadable, but I could see the shift in her posture, the way she suddenly seemed more alert. Evander looked between them, his frown deepening. What money? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. Dad, did you know that the $25,000 I was accused of stealing last year wasn't actually missing? He blinked. What? Sabine's voice cut in, smooth as ever. Lilybell, enough. I ignored her. Because I do, I said, letting my gaze lock onto Celestine. And so does Dad. The table was no longer a dining setting. It was a battlefield. Sabine's voice was sharp. This is ridiculous! Celestine was trembling now. She's lying, Mom. She's trying to turn you against me. Evander slammed his glass down, the sound shattering through the tense air. Enough. I want the truth. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a bank statement. I slid it across the table, watching Celestine's breath hitch as she recognized it. Evander picked it up, his eyes scanning the page. His grip on the paper tightened. Celestine, he said slowly, voice laced with disbelief. This is your account. Celestine's panic was visible now. I can explain. I leaned back in my chair, satisfied. You've been stealing from Mom for years, and she blamed me for it. Silence fell over the table, thick and suffocating. Sabine's lips parted, but for the first time no words came out. Then she finally spoke. Is that true? Celestine opened her mouth, but I already knew. Whatever she said next would change everything. For the first time, my father stood up for me. And for the first time, my mother realized she had lost. Celestine's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, for some way to turn this in her favor. But there was no way out. Mom, she's twisting things, she stammered, her voice losing its usual edge. She's making it sound worse than it is. Evander didn't even look at me. He kept his focus on Celestine, the bank statement still clenched in his fist. Tell me the truth, he demanded. Celestine's lips trembled. I needed the money. I was going to pay it back. Sabine's expression was unreadable, but I saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw tightened. You let me throw Lilybell out of this house over a lie, she said quietly. Celestine's breath hitched. You wouldn't have believed me anyway. I watched as Sabine's mask started to crack. Her mind was racing, calculating, figuring out the best way to bury this. She wouldn't admit she was wrong. She never did. I don't care about the past, Sabine finally said, smoothing her tone back into control. What matters is what happens next. Evander's hand slammed onto the table, rattling the silverware. No, what matters is the truth. The air in the room shifted. For the first time in my life, my father wasn't just a bystander. Lilybell was right all along, he said, his voice steady, almost too calm. Sabine's gaze snapped to him. What are you saying? I'm saying, Evander continued, that I'm done turning a blind eye. Celestine let out a nervous laugh. Oh, come on, Dad, this is ridiculous. I leaned back in my chair, watching Sabine's carefully composed expression start to waver. If you don't believe me, Dad, check the financial records yourself. Sabine exhaled sharply. This is absurd. You're making a spectacle of nothing. But it was already too late. Evander wasn't listening to her anymore. He pushed back his chair and stood. I want the truth, and I'm going to find it. Sabine didn't stop him. She couldn't.
For the first time, my father walked away from my mother and toward me instead. The hallway was dimly lit, the flickering glow of the chandelier casting long shadows against the walls. I heard the soft click of heels behind me before Sabine's voice slithered through the silence. "You don't know what you're doing," she murmured. I turned, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "No, Mom, you don't." She took a step closer, her voice soft but razor-sharp. "You think you've won. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I held my ground. She leaned in, her breath cool against my cheek. "You should have stayed gone," she whispered, "because now there's no going back." I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just turned and walked away. The game wasn't over. It was just getting started. The cafe was warm, the scent of roasted coffee beans thick in the air. Rain drizzled against the large window beside me, Seattle's ever-present gloom making the glow of the pendant lights above feel almost intimate. Celestine sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a latte she hadn't taken a sip from. She looked different, not physically, but in the way she held herself. Less smug, more cautious. "I want to make things right," she said, her voice softer than I ever remembered. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Do you?" She exhaled sharply. "Look, I know I messed up, okay, but I was trapped, just like you." "Mom, she controls everything. You think I had a choice?" I scoffed. "You always had a choice. You just liked the benefits of staying on her side." Celestine flinched. I was scared. "You don't know what it's like." "Oh, I don't?" I cut in. "Funny. I seem to remember being the one kicked out in the rain while you laughed." She winced, looking down at her untouched coffee. "I deserve that." A pause. For a moment, I almost believed her. "So why now?" I asked, watching her carefully. "What changed?" Her apartment was smaller than I expected, but still stylish, tastefully decorated in cool grays and blues, as if trying too hard to project an image of stability. Celestine poured 2 glasses of wine, handing me one. "I just want us to talk," she said, her voice unusually soft. I took the glass, but didn't drink. "All right, talk." She hesitated. "Mom, she's struggling more than she lets on. I thought maybe if we—" Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, the screen lighting up with a message. "Is she there?" I recognized the sender instantly, Sabine. I set my glass down. "You never meant a single word, did you?" Celestine stiffened. "It's not like that." I picked up her phone and turned the screen toward her. "Then explain this." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around her glass. "Mom just wants to talk," she said quickly. "That's all." I laughed, cold, sharp. "She doesn't talk, Celestine. She manipulates. She twists reality until you're not sure which way is up, and you—" I gestured to her. "You were her favorite puppet." Celestine stood, moving toward me, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I warned. She exhaled, shaking her head. "You don't understand." "No, I do." My voice was steady, controlled. "And I'll tell you this once, so listen carefully. If either of you try this again, I will destroy you both." Celestine's expression wavered, doubt flickering in her eyes for the first time, but it wasn't enough. She forced a smirk. "Then I guess we'll see who wins." I didn't reply. I had already made my decision. Sabine had played her last card. Now it was my turn. I sat in my apartment, fingers resting lightly on the rim of my wine glass. The city lights flickered beyond the window, but something felt off. A nagging feeling clawed at the edges of my mind, like I was being watched. I shook it off. Paranoia was a dangerous thing, and I wasn't about to let it sink its teeth into me. Then, 3 sharp knocks at the door. I stood, my heartbeat slow but heavy. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Celestine stood there, rain-soaked and pale. "It's over," she breathed. I didn't move. "Define over." She swallowed, stepping inside without waiting for permission. "Mom, she's lost everything." I tilted my head. "And what exactly does that mean for me?" Celestine hesitated. Sabine's office, once pristine, polished, a symbol of her power, was now a disaster zone. Stacks of papers lay scattered, the scent of spilled whiskey lingering in the air. A group of executives stood near the doorway, murmuring among themselves, avoiding her gaze. Evander stood across from her, his arms crossed. The shift in power was undeniable. "It's over," he told her. "You lost." Sabine let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You think I built all this just to let you take it from me?"
Evander's expression didn't change. "You did this to yourself." She paced, hands shaking, but her voice was still controlled. "I still have leverage." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" She turned. eyes glinting with something dangerous. "If I go down," she said slowly, "she's coming with me." I should have known Sabine wouldn't go quietly. When she called, I almost ignored it. But something in me knew. This wasn't a conversation I could avoid. I arrived at the meeting spot, an upscale lounge with dim lighting and expensive decor. She was already seated, a glass of wine in hand, her expression unreadable. "You look well," she said smoothly. I sat across from her. "Cut the act." She sighed, swirling her drink. "Lilybell, we don't have to do this. We can fix it. Work together." I let out a short laugh. "Work together? Like we did when you threw me out with nothing?" She set her glass down a little too hard. "That was a mistake. No, it was a choice." She inhaled deeply, then leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. "You have no idea what kind of enemies you're making." I didn't flinch. "And you have no idea who you're dealing with." Sabine's mask cracked. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You're still just a foolish girl playing pretend." I smiled. "Then why do you look so scared?" Her jaw clenched. She was losing control and she knew it. I stood, adjusting my coat. "Goodbye, Mother," I said. And for the first time she looked afraid. Sabine had lost the game. Now it was time for her to face the consequences. The law office smelled of polished wood and expensive desperation. Sabine sat rigid in the leather chair, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the armrest in a slow, controlled rhythm. Across from her, her attorney adjusted his tie, flipping through the mountain of legal paperwork spread before them. "This isn't good," he admitted, barely meeting her gaze. Sabine scoffed, crossing her legs. "I don't pay you for obvious statements. I pay you to fix problems." Her attorney hesitated. "Your assets are frozen. The lawsuits are piling up. If this goes to trial, you could—" Sabine cut him off with a sharp wave of her hand. "If I can't keep my money, neither can he." She leaned forward, voice lowering. "There are ways to make this go away. Maybe some paperwork gets lost. Maybe a deal is struck before—" The door swung open before she could finish. Evander walked in. She stiffened, her spine snapping straight. He looked different, stronger, steadier. And then she saw what he was holding. A folder, thick, unyielding. He placed it in front of her. "This is everything," he said, his voice calm, almost pitying. "Every forged signature, every embezzled dollar, every lie." Sabine's fingers twitched, but she forced herself to remain composed. "You can't do this to me." Her lawyer cleared his throat and looked away. "There's nothing left to fight for." For the first time in her life, no one was listening. Celestine's apartment wasn't the same. The expensive furniture was still there, but the life had been drained from it. Half the paintings were gone. A few cardboard boxes sat in the corner, taped haphazardly. She sat on the couch, a nearly empty glass of wine in her hand. "I had everything," she murmured. "And now I have nothing." I leaned against the doorway, watching her. "You had everything because you let her decide who you were," I said. "Now you have nothing because without her you don't know who that is." Celestine let out a brittle laugh. "I thought I was different. I thought I was special." She shook her head. "But I was just another pawn." For the first time I saw it, realization, regret. She looked up at me, eyes pleading. "Then what am I supposed to do?" I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Sabine stood before the judge, her face carefully blank, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her shoulders squared just a little too tightly. The prosecution laid everything out: fraud, tax evasion, manipulation, the years of deceit finally dragged into the light. Evander spoke, his voice steady and clear. "She built an empire by ruining people, by controlling, deceiving, and discarding anyone who wasn't useful to her anymore." Sabine didn't react. I sat in the gallery, watching. I didn't feel joy. There was no satisfaction in this, only finality. The judge straightened, lifting the gavel. "The court finds the defendant guilty." And just like that, my mother was no longer untouchable. She had fought for power her entire life. Now she had none. The prison visitation room was sterile. White walls, a faint smell of bleach lingering in the air. the kind of place that stripped people of their illusions, leaving only what was real. Sabine sat across from me in an orange jumpsuit, her hair dull, her once flawless complexion now marked by the weight of her downfall. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled, leaning forward. "You think you've won?" Her voice still held a trace of the woman she used to be, the one who commanded, who demanded, who never bowed. But there was no real fight left in her. I tilted my head slightly, considering her words. Then I smiled. "No, Mother," I said. "I just walked away." Her eyes flashed, but only for a second. "You were never my weakness," I continued, my voice steady. "You were just my past." The motel smelled like stale cigarettes and lost hope. Celestine opened the door hesitantly, her once perfect posture now slightly hunched. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by an oversized hoodie and leggings that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. "I didn't think you'd come," she admitted, voice raw. I stepped inside, surveying the small, dimly lit room. It was a far cry from the luxury she used to flaunt. "Why am I here, Celestine?" I asked, my tone neutral. She sat down on the bed, running a shaky hand through her tangled hair. "I don't know who I am without her." There it was. The truth. I watched her for a moment. I should have felt something. Sympathy, maybe. But I didn't. "You have two choices," I said simply. "Figure it out, or don't. Either way, it's not my problem." Her lips parted, searching for words, but she found none. I turned toward the door. "I don't owe you anything," I said over my shoulder. And for the first time, I meant it. The view from my new office stretched over the city skyline, glass towers reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. It felt different than any office I had ever been in before, because this one was mine. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Evander stood there, hands in his pockets, a hesitant look in his eyes. "Nice place," he said. I nodded. "It is." He shifted slightly. "I just wanted to say, I know I failed you." I let out a slow breath. "Yeah, you did." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It just was. He looked down, then back at me. "I'd like to fix things." I gave him a small smile, but it wasn't an invitation. "Some things can't be fixed, Dad." He nodded once. He understood. And then he left. I turned back to the window, watching the city lights flicker to life. No ghosts, no regrets, just the future. For the first time in my life, I owe nothing to anyone. Some scars never fade. But that doesn't mean you have to keep looking at them. The letter was tucked between old books, hidden in a drawer I hadn't opened in years. The paper had yellowed slightly at the edges, but my handwriting was still bold, desperate. I unfolded it slowly, my eyes scanning the words I had once written to Sabine. "I just want to understand why. I don't know what I did wrong. Please just tell me the truth." I exhaled sharply, a quiet laugh escaping my lips. I had begged for answers, for acknowledgement. I had needed her to see me. Now I didn't need anything from her at all. Without hesitation, I crumpled the letter and tossed it into the fireplace. The flames curled around the paper, turning the past into nothing but ash. I watched it burn, feeling nothing. "I spent too many years waiting for something that was never coming," I murmured. I was done waiting. The coffee shop was quiet, the early morning rush having died down. Celestine sat across from me, her fingers wrapped around a ceramic mug, her nails chipped. A far cry from the woman who used to flaunt designer handbags and effortless perfection. She didn't ask for money. She didn't make excuses. She simply sighed and said, "I messed up." I stirred my coffee, watching her. "Yeah, you did." She let out a weak laugh, shaking her head. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" I took a sip. "Was it ever easy for me?" Celestine looked down, nodding slowly. "I didn't expect forgiveness," she admitted. I guess I wanted you to know I see it now. Everything I did, everything I let happen." There was a time when those words would have mattered, a time when I would have clung to them, hoping they meant something. Now they were just words. "What now?" she asked, her voice quieter. I glanced out the window, watching the city move forward, just like I had. I don't know, I said honestly, but whatever it is, I'll be fine. And for the first time, Celestine didn't argue. The contract in front of me was thick, filled with details, numbers, legal jargon. A year ago, I might have hesitated. Now I reached for the pen without a second thought. "You sure about this?" the investor sitting across from me asked. I smiled. I built this, every inch of it. I've never been more sure of anything. As I signed my name at the bottom of the page, I felt it. Not just relief, but something deeper. Freedom. I stood, walking over to the window, my office high above the city. The skyline stretched out before me, endless possibilities waiting just beyond the glass. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was exactly where I belonged. Life has a way of teaching us lessons, sometimes in the hardest, most painful ways. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You are not defined by the people who hurt you. You are not bound to the past that tried to break you. You are more than the pain, more than the betrayal, more than the voices that told you that you weren't enough. Walking away wasn't just about leaving behind toxic relationships. It was about reclaiming my own power. It was about understanding that closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. The moment I stopped waiting for apologies, for justice, for validation, was the moment I truly became free. Maybe you've been in a situation like mine. Maybe you've trusted the wrong people, held on to something or someone that never held you back. Maybe you've spent years waiting for change that never came. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. You don't need permission to start over. You don't need someone else to acknowledge your worth. You already have it. And the moment you realize that, that's when everything changes. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone for the sake of your own peace? Was there a moment in your life when you realized you deserved better? Let me know in the comments. Drop a 1 inch if this story resonated with you, or tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to connect with you. And if you didn't like this story, let me know why. Your feedback matters. If you found value in this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. There's always more to tell, and I can't wait to share it with you. Until next time, remember, your past doesn't define you. But what you do next, that's what really matters.